everybody. Welcome to Track Talk. Today we are talking with none other than FEL Motorsports President Chris Bai. It is his vision why we're all here, and we thought it was really important to bring him on to talk a little bit about, his history in motorsports, what inspired him to start FEL Motorsports, what the current state of the series, and where we're headed going forward. This interview definitely doesn't disappoint. He's got a lot of stories to share, and we are all excited about his vision. We all share his vision for Canadian motorsport, and I think that once you watch this interview, you're going to share the vision as well. Keep watching Track Talk and subscribe to FEL Motorsports to keep up to date with the rest of the races of this season.
Jump right into the beginning, like what kind of started the whole process, where the idea came from, and then what were the first steps of putting FEL Motorsports into action?
FEL Motorsports was really born out of COVID. If COVID hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here at the racetrack. So our normal business is doing live events for automotive manufacturers. And up until 2020, we were flying along, and life was crazy but good. In 2018, we had a record year. We did 794 live event days for manufacturers. We did almost that many again in 19. And then on Friday, the 13th of March, 2020, we got a call from all clients, cease and desist all activities immediately. So in 2020, we did 19 event days from 790. So it was a massive hit. Obviously the whole world stopped turning. So we needed, I needed something. I knew that COVID would end one day. We're in a very specialized business and we couldn't lose all of our team members. So we needed to figure out some way to keep everyone. And, like many other businesses, we took advantage of the government programs. And, we really sat idle for probably almost a year. And I just said, we need to, I need to do something to keep people busy. We saw an opportunity to sort of bring sports car racing to a different level. And, motorsports has been my entire life. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that we could get there, and it would give an opportunity to keep our team members busy. It was a much larger investment than what I thought, and probably what I told our management team. But yeah, it was a spot for, as James Hinchcliffe's very first sponsor. When he was 16, we were involved with A Motorsport and James in Formula BMW. And I just thought, where's the next Hinchcliffe, the next Zachary Robichon coming from? The Porsche series doesn't exist anymore. And we've got some series, but I really felt there needed to be a strong focus on homologated racing, where a young driver could come and really hone their skills and be in cars that are exactly the same as the car beside them. And that was missing. When we started this, we committed that we would only race homologated cars. Therefore, we have GT4, TCR, and this year we've added homologated TCA class as more of an entry level. We will stay the course with homologated cars, and if someone wins in radicals or in a sports car with FEL Motorsports, they have worked hard to get there. I think everyone sees it. If we look at, our first year champion, Marco Signoretti, he went on to Europe with Multimatic. And yes, he had a relationship with Multimatic, but the time he spent here didn't hurt. You look at a radical champion first year, Austin Riley, he went down and won the US championship. We've got Jonathan running in Europe and in IMSA. So it's really, we really have set the benchmark of what we wanted to do. So that's kind of how we started and how we find ourselves where we are today.
You're not just building a place for a development ladder to help kids grow in Canada and find a way into other levels outside around the world. We're also providing a home for people like my dad, people that want to race at a top level, but they don't want to go spend half their summer traveling around the States, right?
100%. And I think some of the young guns got surprised a couple of weeks ago at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park with your dad, Sam. I mean, he was hooked up and flying. The new CR cars are absolute rocket ships. And I mean, he drove the wheels off. It did an amazing job all weekend. It was fun to watch. And I think he opened some eyes. So yeah, we want to give the people who aren't focused on having a career a place to come where it's super competitive racing. They can't buy their way to the front. The cars are all the same. And that's what, even though sometimes one will be behind the wheel and we get frustrated, you want tough competition. And and fair competition, and in cars that, these cars are expensive. So I think there's a good amount of respect around everybody with the cars. So yeah, I think we've achieved that. Again, we're sticking with homologated cars. We're not going to run GT whatever. That will never happen. We are staying the course. We like more cars for sure, but I think by staying focused on what we're doing, we'll get more cars on the grid for sure.
Do you want to kind of give us, how you caught the racing bug and what your history is?
Yeah, well, like I tell people, it started 100 years ago. So my first time to Mosport, my dad was a race fan. So we spent much of our summer vacation, family vacations, going to racetracks around Canada and Western New York, Watson's Glen and whatnot. The first time I was at Mosport, then now Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, was 1965. I was 5 years old. So pretty easy math. I remember standing at the top of the hill as the cars come roaring out of corner one and down the hill and it through two. And the moment I saw it, I'm like, that's what I want to do. So at 17, my brother Rick was building Formula Vs, which now known as Formula 1200s. So I went and got my license at FEL Motorsport Park at 17 years old. And just started down a journey. Spent most of my early career in Formula cars. Formula V, I was a firm believer of staying in a class and win before you move up, much like the kids hockey. Too many times I see guys move up and too early and then get frustrated and leave the sport. So I actually spent 4 years in Formula V. Back then there was 30 cars every weekend. It was super tough, taught great racecraft. So it took me 4 years to win a race. I led many races, but you'd lead going on the back straight. Next thing you know, you're eighth going into corner 8 because of the draft. So learning racecraft and whatnot, and everyone I raced against in Formula V, Stephen Adams, there's a ton of guys and everyone, we learned a lot. So then I went on to 1600, some Formula 2000 stuff. And then during the 80s, back in when racing was really insane and awesome in Canada, I drove a Porsche, a bunch of different Porsches with my brother in Firehawk series. We won the Toronto Star 24 Hours of Motorsport in like 91, I think. So we won a bunch of races, and then there's a Canadian Endurance Championship. So did a bunch of that. And then ultimately I retired in 96, my very first time. And then I had an Indy Lights test at the end of the 95 season. So I spent a week in Texas with an Indy Lights team. And then we tried to find money, and it was just, it's the normal story. But at that point I was 36 years old. So we did an Indy Lights test. There was 6 of us. Andrew Burdine was there, Walter Polar. There was a bunch of guys, Lee Bentham. So a bunch of quick guys. Anyway, it went well, but just trying to find money. And then just said, you know what, it's been fun. I'll pack it in for now. And I said to my wife, if I'm half as good at making money as I am at spending it, we'll probably be fine. Hurley Haywood, who was a good friend of mine, called and we started talking. They were running a Daytona prototype in the Rolex 24-hour. He invited me to come along and had a seat in the car. I was good friends with Scott Sharp and Scott Goodyear. So he said, well, if you bring the 2 Scotts for his car, that he would give me a seat in the 58 car. So I was in the Red Bull car with David Downey, Randy Popst, Mike Borkowski, and myself. And the 59 car was Hurley, Scott Goodyear, Scott Sharp, and JC France. So, and then officially retired at the end of after the Rolex. It gives a unique view, I think, to FEL Motorsports. I spent my entire life driving race cars, being a team owner, and being a sponsor. I did all my own engineering, mechanical work on the cars, and then also being a sponsor. We've been a sponsor on the Plaid Porsche since the beginning. We're super proud of that. And I think that, together with you, Jess, and the rest of the team at FEL Motorsports, we bring really a 360-degree view of what everyone, because, although we're all out there racing, there's different objectives. Our manufacturer sponsors have objectives, our series sponsors have objectives, the teams, the engineers, the drivers, the fans. So it really is a mix. And I think we walk those lines delicately and very well.
I had 2 quick questions, just rolling back through your race history. The Indy Lights test you did, you said that was in Texas?
Yeah, it was a track called Big Springs, Texas. It's in the middle of nowhere. I flew in, I was by myself, and I got a cab from the airport, and we're driving to wherever the hotel we're staying at. And I said, hey, look at that jail. It looks like a Holiday Inn. And the cab driver said, that's because it used to be a Holiday Inn. So it was the prep area. So the Holiday Inn went broke. So the city or the state took it over and turned it into a county jail. We did a track walk, and apparently the IndyCar guys used to test there. I can't believe it. We did a track walk, and the weeds were 3 feet high, and And it was with Brian Stewart. And I said to Stewie, you know, if I go off in corner one, I'm going to have to choose whether I hit the wash machine or the Model T. Like, it was the most dangerous place on the planet. It was bumpy as hell. And there's no way that race cars should be out there. But yeah, that's where it was.
Let us know some of the other places that you raced, because you raced in some unique places. You raced in Hong Kong too.
Yeah. So most recently, I guess, was 17 or 18. Yeah, I got a call just out of the blue from a mutual friend to go to Zhuhai, which is in the south of China. It's about a 45-minute ferry ride from Hong Kong. So I went over there and I did a couple races in a Porsche GT3, which was both fun and awful at the same time. It was in August, which is the rainy season. It was about 46 degrees Celsius and horizontal sheets of rain like I've never seen, and it never stopped. I got one session in the car in the dry, and then every other session it was literally, we would never have gone green here. So we did a track walk, and I said to my teammate after, and he was the only person that spoke English. No one on the team spoke a word of English. And I said, there's like 3 really high speed, like maybe not 5th gear, but pop of 4th gear kinks that were flat. And I'm like, man, this place is fast. I said, where's the nearest trauma center? And he looked at me and said, don't crash. I said, really? Like, really, don't crash.
That's not the answer you want to hear.
So when I jumped in the car, all the controls and on the steering wheel and the dash, everything was Mandarin. So I said, can we start, please? Because I have no idea what any of these buttons do. So they changed all the stickers in the cars. And then we're getting ready for the first race. And Eddie, my teammate, said, Michael wants to know if you want a radio in the car. And I'm like, why? So I can polish up on my Mandarin. Like, no one speaks a word of English. So yeah, it was started behind the first race. We started behind the pace car because it would literally, the car would move like from white line to white line without turning the steering wheel. There's so much water on the track. And you couldn't see a thing. I have a video somewhere. It's like saran wrap over the windshield. Anyway, I went down and we finally got the green flag. Went down into corner one at, I don't know, 220 or 230 or something, and jumped on the brakes. And the team had mixed up the F and the R on the brake bias. So I was backwards in the sand trap before, faster than I could blink. So stuck in the sand trap, and then had to start last in the second race. And I was like, although I didn't have to pay for any damages, I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy. Yeah, so that's it. So where else have I raced? Did 12 hours of Sebring. Used to be a Firehawk race in the fall, and we went down with 2 Porsches. 84 cars took the green flag. That was after winning the championship here. And I think we ran second and third for the first 8 hours. And, you know, the Americans don't pay attention to what's happening up here sometimes, especially in motorsports. And they're like, who the hell are you guys? So obviously Daytona, you know, Roebling Road, Savannah, Georgia. Yeah, mostly, you know, been to many racetracks, Nürburgring, Hockenheim, been working at many racetracks that I haven't raced at. So yeah, I've been fortunate enough to travel, you know, through several parts of Europe and over to Asia and certainly North America. Elkhart Lake was awesome track. I drove a Saleen Mustang there for a number of years. I did a bunch of races, and in the Mustang, the Elkhart Lake was one of my favorite tracks.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the year that you guys ran the Rolex, I believe you guys suffered a mechanical from the lead, but that was like the first year they had the Daytona prototypes. And wasn't there a bunch of issues, and a GT car actually ended up winning overall?
Yeah, one of Kevin Buckler's cars, a Racer Group 1 overall. So we were leading. We qualified in the front row beside Multimatic car with Maxwell, and yeah, we led the first 8 hours, and yeah, had some mechanical issues. I think there wasn't that many prototypes. I want to say there was 6 or 8. So it was the very first year. And our car was built by Fab Car in Indianapolis, the same car that built the Porsche 962s, the same shop. So the car was really cool, and yeah, it was super unfortunate because. Yeah, we were definitely going away. We were ahead of the 59 car, and you know, everything was going super well. And yeah, it was a heartbreaker. I think there was a few tears. I don't know if it's worse than a 3-car race to break early or to break late. It's yeah, it's just leading a 24-hour races. You know, I'd won one in the Firehawk days, so I knew what it was like to win. So just so much goes into a 24-hour race. It's so much. You know, there's so much energy and work, and so many things have to be perfect in order to win.
One of the questions we got from Instagram was somebody wanted to know what your favorite Canadian track is.
Well, that's easy. It's CTMP. It's got to be Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. I love Le Circuit Mont Tremblant. It's an awesome racetrack. I loved racing there when we did in the 80s and 90s. But I think that, and Ron will say this, one of the main reasons that Canadian drivers do so well on the global stage is because of those two tracks. But Canadian Tire Motorsport Park has places that are daunting, and I found Tremblant was fun and exhilarating, and I love going there. And the whole area is amazing. Being at Tremblant and experiencing the culture and the village and the racetrack and whatnot, has always been great. But there's a couple spots, if you try and go fast in qualifying, I don't care what you're in, and you're at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, it's like you got to take a deep breath and hang on. And it's not fun. The exit of corner one and something fast, it's you're not having a good time. It's a tough place for sure. But it makes us all better. There's no question about it.
I love it too when like the IMSA guys come and you hear their reactions, especially guys for the first time coming, and a lot of them driven all over the world, and they still say, cresting corner two. It's like, oh my God.
When Castro Neves came up in IMSA, he had never been here, and he texted Scott Goodyear, and he's like, holy shit, now I see what you mean. I talked to Mark Werner in when I was working with Audi in Europe, and he did a 104 something in the Audi R8, the open cockpit prototypes, and he told me they turned into corner 8 at 305K flat.
Oh my God.
It's just frightening to even think of that.
And that's when the runoffs weren't there too, probably.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Then last summer I went to my first superbike race there. We went with Haley and Kenny, and I'd never seen the superbikes there, and they're doing like 315 at the end of the back straight. It's just frightening. I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong with you guys? This is like.
Well, another question we got online that kind of relates to, are we talking about 24-hour races and endurance races? Is there ever a possibility of an endurance race put on by FEL Motorsports in the future?
100% is a possibility. We've talked to the teams about it. What we would need to do is, so a couple of things. One is we would, at least in the beginning, we would do timed pit stops, because, we can't have the teams that currently compete in endurance racing show up with the fuel rigs and have this pit stop as part of the race. And it's very expensive to buy all that equipment and have the proper teams there. So that's the first thing. We do a timed pit stop from pit in to pit out and make it fairly quick. But so we would do that. And then, but the second caveat, I guess, is we really need to focus on our staff on the weekend, because we need to have more staff in pit lane. And it's, if we do it, we won't do it until we're ready and we can do it properly. That's the way we do things at FEL and FEL Motorsports. It's if we can't do it right, we're not doing it. So we'll take a lot of time to think about it. I think what will happen, and I don't know when this will happen, I think we would do an invitational, like a 3-hour invitational race, and ideally invite the teams to have drivers who currently don't race with us, so we can expose them to the series, have it as a non-points race, see if we can come up with some prize money or something. So we are talking about that. I would love to do it. I think the teams would love to do it. We've got some input, so definitely something in the works. When, I don't know if it would be this year or next year, but the first time at it, it will not be part of the championship in case we screwed up. We need to figure out, and honestly, we will make mistakes. We just need to know where the weaknesses are and where we can fix them before we throw it into part of the championship. But for sure, I keep bugging Ron about having another 24-hour race. CTMP at 2 a.m. with 0 lights is a pretty daunting place. When you turn in the top of corner 2 and all you can see are the top of the trees.
Yeah, I can just imagine all the campers too, like the fires and stuff going around.
It's killer. It's it was super, super amazing.
Okay, I have a question that I want us to address before we do more like series questions, but I want you to talk a little bit about like the level of, I don't know how to word this, but basically, FEL and the standards that we have set with FEL and kind of that moving into FEL Motorsports and what that means for our series.
Yeah, sure. On our normal side of our business, FEL Automotive Learning and Promotion, we deal 100% with manufacturers. We're a tier 1 partner with all of our manufacturing clients and partners. The majority of our business is in the premium world, and we're really focused on, we train dealership sales consultants and dealership employees on, customer service and serving the high net worth client, and just all the things that the premium nowadays all brands do well. So we have definitely brought that mindset to FEL Motorsports. I am a bit of a stickler with doing things properly. If we can't do it 100%, we're not going to do it at all. And sometimes there's limitations and budgets and whatnot, but I'm a firm believer in looking at what successful people do and emulate that as best as possible. So with FEL Motorsports, the answer to the question of how we do things is really simple. Executing it is very difficult. So everything that we do, and we do this on the other side of our business as well, but with FEL Motorsports, every decision that we have to make, I ask myself one simple question, and that question is, what would Roger do? And I try and do that. The answer is easy. You know what Roger would do, but damn, it's hard to do. And we just try and do that. And we try and be, there's a term in the industry called Penske perfect. And we focus on that because you know what? He does everything wrong. He does everything right. If you go to the Honda Indy, you walk by his trailer, someone sat there with a measuring tape with all of the scooters. They're exactly aligned and the wheels are turned exactly. Everything is perfect. There's nothing laying around. There's not an air hose in place. And even in IMSA and WEC, when you walk by the Penske garage or the Penske trailer and you look at it, there's nothing there that doesn't belong there. It's either being used, it's a wrench in a mechanic's hand, or it's back in the toolbox where it belongs and nothing laying around. So, I'm really focused on that. And I think with the level of clientele that we're trying to attract, both from teams and sponsors, I think it's super important. And I think, this is our third year. And I believe that the national and international companies that we are approaching to come on board with us have to stop ignoring us. At some point, they're going to realize they want to be a part of something special, and we'll stay focused on making it special for the competitors and the fans. We want to give a good fan experience, and we want to be inclusive, not exclusive. We want the fans in our paddocks. I know that some of the drivers are cool with kids sitting in their cars, and we want to do all that stuff.
Let's break down the format of the both series and kind of, I guess, why we had to go to 4 event weekends rather than 6, what we were doing before.
So at the end of last year, as we all know, there was lots of chatter in the media about a recession, whether we were in one or headed towards one. Interest rates were climbing at a rapid speed that we had not seen in over a decade. Everyone was getting nervous. And the sport's expensive. So we met with all the teams, and one thing we've always focused on is this series belongs to the teams. So what do you guys want to do? And we talked about keeping a 12 race championship, but do it over 4 weekends. And it took a lot of thought and consideration to do that. We have 4 triple headers. There was talk is like, well, what if I crash in race 1 and I can't fix my car for race 2 and 3? I'm like, well, then don't crash. Like, if you crash in any race, you're not going to finish. So it's certainly a concern, but the majority of the teams, I think, really have voiced that they like the format. And it also gives some of the teams that aren't fully focused on pursuing a career, it gives us a little bit of our summer back, which I think is important. We're at Victoria Day, we're at CTMP, and now we're off really until the middle of July at Honda Indy. So people can go to the cottage, and also if they want to go race in some other series, they can do that as well. So we really think it was the right decision to make for 2023. Whether it will be the right decision to make for 2024, we will not know until September, and then we'll meet with all the teams and get feedback from them. So I think we've saved teams a significant amount of money. Travel's expensive, hotel rooms, it's not cheap to move, the whole show down the road. It certainly made it, it's made it a little more economical for us, FEL, so we can invest in some other areas. So yeah, I think it's worked out well. And the reality is we haven't changed the amount of track time. We just turned a 30-minute qualifying into a 30-minute race. And the format that we've done with race 1 and 2 being your starting position being your fastest and second fastest lap in qualifying, and race 3, your starting position is your finishing position from race 2. The mindset is that we hope and it's easier said than done. I'm a driver, I get it. But if there's a high risk maneuver in race 2 that you might hesitate a bit, because if you get taken out, you're starting last in race 3. So we're hoping that kind of helps with that a little bit. We'll find out by September, but so far it's been pretty good. So that's kind of the mindset of where we're at. Again, trying to save teams money and listening to our customers. All the teams are customers, radicals and sports cars. And it's, guys, what do you guys want to do? And that's what we'll do.
Okay, another Instagram question, and I'm going to kind of ask you two sides of the coin here. What are some of the challenges that Canadian series face? And then what are, in your opinion, are some of the biggest areas of improvement?
Yeah, those are two great questions. Challenges always are, I think, number one is population base. We have 1/10 of the population of the US. That said, I think we excel in motorsports. Michelin Pilot has, I want to say, around the high teens and maybe 15 to 18 TCR cars. And I think we have almost that many. I think we're at 12 or 13. So, I think so the challenge is, the economics, there's not, sure, there are people that can afford to do it in Canada, but there's more people that can afford to do it in the US. I think one of the challenges of running a national series, and I get asked this often, and the answer is very simple. Why don't you call it a national series, but you're not out west and you're not out east? Well, the reality is that within a 6-hour drive in Ontario and Quebec, there are 6 FIA certified racetracks, sanctioned racetracks. That's just the reality. 100% of our teams are from Ontario and Quebec. I would love to go out west or to go out east. It's just, it has to make economic sense to our teams. And we can't ask our teams to tow 4,000 kilometers when every single team has to tow out west. Would we do an East and a West Coast championship and have a shootout like we've done in the past in the 80s and 90s? Absolutely, if the car count justifies it, for sure. It just, at this point in time, it doesn't. We will, as we said, they have to be homologated race cars. So down the road, would we do something at Area 27? We would love to. It's an amazing area. It's a great place. I've been there many times. The racetrack's awesome. We would love to do it. It has to make economic sense. So just the geographical footprint of Canada, it's 7,000 kilometers from coast to coast. And, once you leave Ontario, Quebec, there's no other racetracks within reason. And I think the corporate challenge, I think it's a challenge in the US as well, to getting corporate Canada involved. When we started this thing, I think back to when I was racing in the 80s and 90s, Export A, players had their program going. I mean, there's beer money. It was when players left, everyone said, when we kind of started this thing, everyone just kind of was crying in their beer and said, racing will never be the same in Canada. And I was part of that group. And then one day I woke up and I said, why not? It doesn't have to be a cigarette company. There are thousands of companies spending billions of dollars in Canada in advertising and marketing. Why don't we, if we lock our arms collectively and, go after them and see what we can get? It doesn't have to be one big, it doesn't have to be players, but it can be, there's tons of them out there. So we're chasing them aggressively. And I think, will it get back to the heyday of the 80s and 90s? Probably not. But you know what? There's no reason we can't walk in that direction.
Yeah. And, to add to that, I think for sponsors, motorsport has a lot to offer as well. There's a lot of value here. And, in us growing the sport, like it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. But, once we can prove that there's value and we've got, a fan base, a following, that's not, just FEL Motorsports, it's the whole Canadian motorsport community.
One of our focuses especially with the sports car championship and running homologated only cars, is to support the manufacturers in Canada. That's our day-to-day business. They make it possible for us to run FEL Motorsports, and we support them in giving them a venue to sell new cars. If you look at the Audi TCR grid, I think there's 6 or 8 new cars out there. There's probably a dozen, between Gen 1 and Gen 2 TCR cars sold by Audi Canada through their dealer network. So sponsors want access and relationships with manufacturers. That's, whether it's tires or shocks or oil or whatever it is. So I think we're giving everybody, a playground where they can come and they can network amongst themselves. The suite at the coming up, the VIP suite at the Honda Indy Toronto, and a chance for people to network and get to know people, and we can hopefully the goal is to get businesses to be, to do business with each other. And Michelin's been an amazing partner. And I think they care what the manufacturers think, although they're passionate about racing. Let's face it, their real business is supplying cars that come off the assembly line with tires. I mean, they're big business, although they're very passionate and focused on as well. But they care what the manufacturers think. So, yeah, I think giving everyone sort of a network to work, it will take a while, but I definitely believe that eventually it'll work.
My second question, what do you think is one of the biggest areas of improvement or opportunities for growth, I guess?
So, yeah, and I mean, this is my personal belief. I think that the biggest area for improvement is to be doing exactly what we're doing, to stick with homologated on the sports car side and on the radical side, to stick with homologated racing. We are not, again, going to open up GT whatever class. That's not happening. There are places in the country to run, garage built GT cars, which is great. And it's a super important part of the sport where someone can tinker on the car. They can build the car in the garage at their shop. They can tinker on themselves in the weekend and they can go racing. And there's SPC does a great job. They can run the cars there. You can go club racing. That the Sports Car Championship Canada and FEL Motorsports will never be that place. We want to, by staying focused on homologated racing, I think it gives us more relevance to the new drivers that want to come up and find a home and find a place where they can hone their craft, where they get noticed. We appreciate all the teams, but it's no secret that when we have Multimatic and FAF coming onto the grid, that means a lot. Larry Holt said for the first time in decades, Multimatic has a reason to race in Canada. I think that's super important. I'm also a big believer in prize money and prizing. I know not everyone feels that way, but when I was racing 1600 cars back in the 80s and 90s, I finished second in the championship and, got $5,500. To put that in perspective, although it doesn't sound like much, a brand new Quicksilver race engine was $6,000. So I got prize money every weekend. And at the end of the year, I got a brand new engine. So, it definitely matters. Our pricing, I think that we have a very unique pricing system with the sports cars. The prize money is based on per car that you beat. So the bigger the grids, the more prize money you can make. I think last weekend, some of the guys are making $3,000 or $4,000 back. So, it's never enough, but it helps. Raffling off a set of tires with Braden Motorsports, both the sports cars and the radicals each weekend, is a significant prize and a barrel of fuel from FEL. And then all the other pricing that we hand out. One of the things we're most excited about for 2023 is at our year-end banquet in September, all of the drivers' hard cards from radicals and sports cars separately will go into a draw, and you don't have to win the championship. It's a random draw, and everyone has an equal shot of winning. And the grand prize is 2 air tickets to Vegas, 4 nights accommodation, and 2 seats for Vegas F1 in November. So that's a prize of about $23,000, and that's one package for radicals and one for sports cars. To win either of those prizes, you have to enter and participate in every race in the series. So you can't just pick and choose 1 or 2 races. And then on the sports cars, it's specific for TCR and GT4. Once we grow the TCA field, then we can add them. But right now it's TCR and GT4. As we grow the grids, we will drop entry fees. We've told everyone we'll do that. We need to cover our expenses. We need to pay for track rental and all the extra expenses that comes along with running our race series. But as we grow numbers and as entries grow, we will start to drop our entry fees, and we will, we'll definitely stand on that.
Last Instagram question that is relevant, and I don't think you and I have talked about this before, the potential and sustainability of a GT3 grid in the future.
Great question. And I've been asked this when we first started, we got asked a lot. So as I said, part of our mandate when we started, we'll talk specifically on the sports car side. Part of our mandate is to give racers, young drivers, a place to hone their skills in equal cars, and the gentleman drivers a place for tough competition where they could go out and have great competition. But our third mandate is to support our manufacturer clients. So we are here to help manufacturers sell cars. That's part of why we're here. Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Honda, Hyundai, McLaren. We're here to help them, Audi, of course. We're here to help them sell cars through the dealer network and get some dealer engagement. By bringing out, so first off, the GT3s will never run with the GT4s. We want to grow the GT4 fields. If their GT3s are out there, they can't win overall. Is Porsche Cars Canada going to sell new GT3 cars to come and run with us? Probably not very many. I mean, the cars are super expensive. We would much rather see them sell GT4 cars and bring some GT4 cars to our field and build that. We won't be a home to run current and older GT3 cars that raced in Canada, unless there's a reason to. And the reason would have to be some corporate involvement, but to give the guys a place to come and run the cars. And I'm a huge Porsche fan, don't get me wrong, and I love GT3s. Running the older GT3 models doesn't fit within the FEL Motorsport business model of what we're trying to do.
Not homologated, or at least the old ones. And I think GT4 is a good platform for someone who was a hot shoe in Canada in a GT4 car, use that as a stepping stone to get into a GT3. You're going to spend that much money on a GT3 or to race GT3, you should be doing it in a place like IMSA or SRO.
Look at last year's GT4 champion. There's a full-time ride in Porsche's pickup in the US. We're really hoping that some of the GT3 owners out there would look at GT4 and give it some consideration. The cars are super fast. I mean, they're low 21s, 22s, they're flying. And if we can get more cars and give young kids a chance to come up through the ranks like Zach Robichon did, we're going to stay focused on that. The GT3s, it's a struggle with the car count. And, it's expensive to run a series. And without, serious corporate support, when you've got, 8 or 10 cars, it's very, very difficult.
Where do you see electric vehicles having an impact on TCR, GT4, that type of manufacturer-supported racing?
Well, that's a great question, Sam. And I think of, every time I hear that question, I think of Damon Hill, and someone said, what do you think electrification is going to do to F1 and motorsports? And Hill looked at the camera and said, we don't ride horses anymore, but we still race them. So in my mind, and I may be wrong, I don't believe that internal combustion engines will ever go away in motorsports. I don't believe the manufacturers will allow it. When you look at the money that's being spent in Formula One and WEC and IMSA and all the GT series around the world, there's billions of dollars being spent in research and development and racing. So I don't think it'll ever go away. The electric vehicles creates some interesting challenges in motorsports. I certainly don't have all the details. I know that Terry Dale went to a clinic. There's issues. What if an EV car crashes? It may or may not be safe for marshals to touch the car. Like there's, what about fires? There's a whole bunch of safety issues around EV cars racing. I know we have Formula E and they're doing an amazing job and they're developing technology that's helping, the real world. But I think from a racing standpoint, there's ETCR. I don't know. I think there's people way smarter than me that are looking at that question and trying to answer it.
I can imagine we'll see some like hybrid technology maybe trickle in, but in terms of going full electric, at least I hope that doesn't come for a while, if ever.
Someone asked on Instagram, who was your favorite driver in the series?
Driver in our series? Oh man, I can't say that.
Let's do favorite driver all time.
Joe Tonto, hands down. Now everyone's Googling, who the hell's Joe Tonto? He's no Ricky Bobby, and that Ricky, and the Ricky Bobby in Canada as well. So, but favorite driver, I think, as a racer growing up in the 80s and 90s. I mean, Gilles had to be certainly at the top of the list. Someone that drove with the amount of passion that he did. And then someone else that really stood out to me when I was younger was Walter Roll. I remember watching Walter in the Audi IMSA car at CTMP come over corner 2 was teammates with Hurley Haywood. I had no idea who he was. He came from the rally world, and it was definitely someone special.
So rapid fire Q&A for those who don't know. This is the hot lap. First question, do you prefer dry or wet races?
I would say when I was young and fearless, probably wet. But after my experience in China a couple of years ago, I would say dry.
Okay. Yeah, from hearing that experience, that makes sense. Which is most important to you, corner entry, apex, or exit?
Qualifying a race.
Yeah, okay, good point.
In a race scenario, you gotta protect the line a little bit. So entry's important as you're protecting the line, depends on where you are. I mean, ultimately, the exit is the most important, but it comes from the result of entry and apex. I mean, we're doing some renos at home, and Kathy found a qualifying sheet from a Formula. You'll appreciate this, Sam, from a Formula 1600 race in the 90s. 54 cars were on the grid, standing start.
Oh my God. At most for it. You'd have like cars going around turn 10.
It was insane. So back then it was absolutely crazy. So corner entry was super important because you had 6 guys trying to get in there. So to give you an example, in 1995, I qualified third at Victoria Day, our first weekend, and led a bit and finished second in the race with Andrew Bourdin. And then we went to Montreal like literally 2 weeks later, and I qualified 17th. I was 7/10 off the pole. I was 17th.
Yeah, 1600. I can only imagine what it was like drafting down the back straight if you were like mid pack.
How many are in the series now, Sam?
Like a good weekend will get 25, probably is the most you'll see. But like usually it's 20-ish, give or take. Yeah. 54. Yeah, it's great. And you have to also think too, and I imagine that's mainly like A class cars. Like there weren't as many.
Yeah, majority. I don't even remember back then if we had B class cars. And everyone had new cars. 1991 when we raced with Greg Adams or with Greg Moore. The championship came down to Stephen Adams and myself. And I tell people Stephen was the toughest son of a bitch ever raced. I raced against a lot of people. And in 1991, 10 races, I was on the podium 8 times, and I never won a race. That was frustrating.
Because Steve
would never let you win. It was such an asshole.
Yeah, he's pretty good setting the car up too. I'll tell you that.
Yes, no question about that. So yeah.
Okay, getting back onto the hot lap here. So, what is a bucket list track that you haven't driven yet that you'd like to?
Bathurst, and they run a 1600 race there.
Yeah, which I can imagine going down the Skyline.
It's awesome. That looks amazing, and I think we should get a bunch of guys together and have a conversation about going around 1600 race. I've driven Laguna, but I've never raced at Laguna, so that would be a North American one.
How about a bucket list event to attend as a fan?
Yeah, probably. I had 4 friends that were at Monaco on the weekend, so probably that. I would say I've been to Monaco. I was there in October, hanging around, but it'd probably be fun to go to the race weekend. I can't really think. Oh, actually, above that, if we're not talking about cars, the Isle of Man TT motorcycle race for sure. That's definitely something I'm going to do one of these in the not too distant future.
Okay, here's one that we'll see if you have an answer for or not. But favorite Mario Kart character?
Okay, I'm not a big Mario Kart, but Bowser.
Do you have a favorite Mario Kart weapon?
Oh yeah, banana peels. I would have bushels. I'd have bushels of them first coming out. I just got to figure out how to get in front of him at first. But he would have bushels of banana peels to deal with.
Do you prefer oversteer or understeer in a car?
Definitely prefer a car to be a little bit loose, not too much, but it probably comes from a bunch of years in Porsches where you want a car just a little bit loose. The car responds so well to throttle input. Just found it a little bit more comfortable, and you can get back to the throttle. And that said, I've never in my life raced a front wheel drive car. So we bought a new TCR car from Audi, and I drove it a couple of times, but I never raced it. So I don't know the setup of front wheel drive. So definitely, if it's rear wheel drive, I like it to be a little bit loose, a little bit of oversteer, not too much.
Well, let's get your thoughts on sim racing.
Horrendous at sim racing. When I got invited to go to Zhuhai, I didn't know the track, so I went to Alex Ellis let me drive his sim, and it had Oculus glass. And the first thing that happened was I got super nauseous. And Alex said, the trick apparently is to have one beer. You can't have more, but you have one beer, and it's supposed to work make you nauseous. But I never really got it. I have just a cheap sim at home, and I'm just terrible. I don't know if it's my generation. I can't get used to not feeling things, and also I have a cheap setup. But FAF has a pretty good sim in their shop, and I was there one day, and I jumped in, and in about 10 minutes, I said to Bortolotti, I've done like $4 million damage to your car, so you might as well take over. I just can't. I don't know. I just can't. I also haven't really tried, but I just can't I don't know why, I just can't seem to get a hang of it. I can't not crash. And I was pretty good about not crashing in real cars.
So as a sponsor, what do you think that like sponsors are looking for from drivers?
That's a good question. I think, they're looking for, nowadays it's different than when I was racing for sure. I mean, social media is such a huge platform. And they're looking for drivers to represent them. I think, everybody needs to be, when I was racing, we didn't have social media. And not every single person standing beside you had a high def camera and video camera in their hand. So drivers need to be, very cautious and sensitive to that. They need to be, I think they're looking for engagement. I think the sponsors are, and they're looking to do things outside of the racetrack. It's fun to come to the racetrack and see the race cars, but I've always said the race car has way more value at a home show than at a car show, because it's the only one there. You go to a car show and there's hundreds of race cars, which is cool, but you go to the Cottage Life show or the home show or something away from race cars, they draw a lot more attraction, a lot more attention for sure. So yeah, I think the drivers just need to be really sensitive. There are some guys that do an amazing job. I'm a huge Zach Robichon fan. I think Zach does an amazing job both in and out of the race car. He drives the wheels off it. But he's just a humble, pleasant human being. He's just a guy that you want to hang out with, So I'm a big fan, and I think that's important. And the young drivers, need to remember that, and they want team players. Yeah, they just want people that are going to represent their brand in a positive light.
All right. Anything you want to leave us with? Closing remarks or anything you want to say about FEL and the 2023 season?
Yeah, I think mostly I want to thank the teams and our sponsors that have chosen to make FEL Motorsports your home, whether it's in sports cars or in radicals. Big shout out to Michelin. They've been a massive partner, hugely important and hugely instrumental in us being able to deliver the quality of racing that we have been. I don't think there's any question that Michelin is the benchmark in motorsport tires. We're super proud to have them. But all the teams, and I'm not going to name any one of them, we appreciate every single one of them. The teams that started early and started the conversations way back when, before this started, and I will shout out, the Tooth guys and Hyundai Racing Canada. Bob and the boys and Chris were very instrumental in, hey, let's do something that can be different and better. And we really worked with Ron, and we went to Ron for advice, and how can you not go in motorsport in Canada? How can you not go to Ron for advice? I mean, everything he's done is pretty spectacular in the sport. So we appreciate the teams. We will never stop. We will never stop trying to make the FEL Motorsports your home and make you proud to race there, and bring your sponsors. We want you to be able to go and sell sponsorship and bring your sponsors to the track and be proud to bring them there, where they can see the teams and the fans and interact. And we want it to be, something special, and we will continue to work hard. We make mistakes? 100%. We've made mistakes in year one. We made mistakes in year two, and we will make mistakes this year. As I tell everyone, Jess, you've heard me say it 100 times here at the office. The easy way not to make any mistakes: don't do anything, and you'll be perfect at nothing. So we work hard, but when we make mistakes, we learn from them. Our intent is to do what's in the best interest of our customers, and our customers are our teams, our drivers, and our sponsors, and our fans. And I'm personally super excited, and I think you are, Jess, and everyone at FEL Motorsports, where this can go, because we'll come in 2 short years. We're gonna have 22 or 23 cars at the Honda Indy and sports cars, and 30 to 40 radicals with our US friends joining us. After being at Honda Indy 1 year and last year, and now we're back. So very proud of what we've done. And I think, it's come from the elbow grease from you, Jess, and everyone at FEL Motorsports. It's, the old cliche about the trick to being successful is find people smarter than yourself and let them and surround yourself with them. Well, for me, that's been very easy. So I've done that and let people go hire good people and bring people, good people on board and let them do their job, leave them alone. And guys, here's the objective. Let's chase this and do what we can. So super proud of the job we've done, proud of all the teams, the grid. If you look at the, deliveries on the cars, the quality of the cars, the quality of the drivers. We had 4 TCR cars that were 0.22 seconds apart. And I think we had top 6 cars were 0.4 of a second. And it's only going to get tighter. So it's not going to get any easier for the drivers out there. And although I know everyone wants to win, they also want tough competition. So,
and it's super exciting for the fans.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I will just kind of add to that, I knew nothing before I came into this space. I knew nothing about motorsports at all. And it's really been like, obviously you and your vision, and then all of the staff and the teams, and just seeing everybody jump on board about something that they're so passionate about. It's super inspiring. And I'm seeing it every single day on social media and with our YouTube, and the comments and people liking the stories, and I can see it like branching out through like the fans and everything, and it's super inspiring. And I think that a lot of people knew that there was something missing.
Yeah, I think I think we'll stay the course. And again, I think it's like you knew nothing, as I don't know if Sam's aware, but Jess worked in our training department. And when this whole thing started, I went to our training manager, who's also our controller, and said, "Hey, Rob, I'm stealing Jessica, just so you know." And so Jess like, "But I've never been to a race in my life. I have never seen a race car." I'm like, "Well, you're about to learn." So we kind of threw her to the wolves and gave her support. So you've done an amazing job, Jess, and Sam. I think together you guys are crushing the social media, which is fun. As an old guy to watch the social media, it's super engaging. So I think we're not going to do anything different. We're going to stay the course and keep our foot on the gas and see where this thing goes.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the time. And I think that's super valuable. A lot of people will really appreciate some of the stuff that you shared, and just kind of knowing FEL a little bit better, and your background and where we came from and where we're heading.
Thanks, you guys. It's been fun. You're a big part of making it fun, and Haley and everyone on the team. It's it's part of fun. Looking forward to Honda Indy.
Still going bad on you anyway. Whoa, 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 whoa. I can feel like 80 rats in my Marys. Me and Drizzy back to back is getting scary.